So 1.1 linear equations. So we had different stuff in here of us talking about, like, if we have a linear equation and we end up with something like 0 equals 0, 5 equals 5, or something like that, then it's an identity. If we have a single solution, like x is equal to 4, then that is conditional. The equation is conditional. And if we get something that's not true, like 0 equals 7, then it is a contradiction. So some of these problems we're just stating, like, we'll solve it out, but then when we get to the end, we'll say, like, what kind it is. And that's really all they're asking for us to do in this section. So it says to solve each equation, and then we're going to say, like, what it is if it's one of those things. And then a couple of them later, it'll actually specifically ask us for that. So number 12, 9x plus 11 equals 7x plus 1. So I need to get all the x's to one side, all the numbers to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 7x, so that's going to give me 2x equals, I'm going to subtract 11, so that's going to give me a negative 10. So then divide by 2, x equals negative 5. So is this an identity, conditional, or contradiction? Conditional. Because that one has exactly one answer. 18, we've got 5 times, in parentheses, x plus 3, close the parentheses, plus 4x minus 3 equals negative, parentheses, 2x minus 4 plus 2. So first and foremost, I'm going to go through and distribute this stuff. So I'm going to distribute this 5 and then this negative sign so that I have that taken care of. So I'm going to get 5x plus 15 plus 4x minus 3 equals negative 2x plus 4 plus 2. Now, I'm going to go ahead and combine like terms on each side just so that I get it simplified down as much as possible. So that gives me 9x plus 12 equals negative 2x plus 6. So I'm going to add the 2x from the right over and move that 12 over by subtracting it. So I get 11x equals, what is that, negative 6. So x equals negative 6 over 11. So what is this one? Yep, conditional also. I actually think looking at this first set of problems, they're probably all going to be conditional until they get to the part where they're actually asking us what things are. Are we okay on this kind of just like solving an equation? Okay. I figured we were, but always have to go over a couple just to make sure. Okay, so the next ones now say to determine whether it's an identity, conditional, or contradiction, and then it says to give the solution set. So basically it's just saying solve the equation. So we'll solve it down, and then when we get to the end result, we'll say what it is. So same thing we were kind of just doing, but that's officially the instructions now. So 32, I have 1/2 times 6x plus 20 equals x plus 4 plus 2 times x plus 3. So I'm going to start out by distributing here the two things that need to be distributed. So that's going to give me 3x plus 10 equals x plus 4 plus 2x plus 6. I'm going to combine like terms, so I get 3x plus 10 equals 3x plus 10. What do you notice? They're the same thing, so when I move everything around, I'm going to end up with a 0 equals 0 situation, which is what? An identity. So as soon as you get to both sides being exactly the same, you can go ahead and say it's an identity, but to really take it all the way, I said 0 equals 0. 34, negative 8 times x plus 5 equals negative 8x minus 5 times x plus 8. So distribute, I get negative 8x minus 40 equals negative 8x minus 5x minus 40. So negative 8x minus 40 equals negative 13x minus 40. Moving the x's over and the numbers around, I get, was that negative? Nope. 5x equals 0. So x equals 0, which is if we get that as one solution, what is it?
Conditional.
Conditional, yep. All right, 36. Let's see if we can get the third option here. My book doesn't have the answer, so I try to pick one usually, like if it's something like this, that's like one of each, so we'll find out what happens. 36, negative 6 times 2x plus 1 minus 3 times x minus 4 equals negative 15x plus 1. So distribute first. You get negative 12x minus 6 minus 3x plus 12 equals negative 15x plus 1. So I've got negative 15x, what is that, plus 6 equals negative 15x plus 1. So at this point, I can either just move the x's over because they're the same value and I'll be left with 6 equals 1, or you can move it over and like subtract something and say like negative 5 equals 0. Either way, what is this? A contradiction. So there's a few different ways you could end this problem. I can't spell. Hold on. There we go. So there's a couple different ways you could end this problem, and it would all still be right because it's a contradiction. So, let's see, what else do we have? Okay, solve each formula for the specified variable. Assume the denominator is not 0 if the variables appear in the denominator. So basically, we just have to assume that because otherwise they would be undefined. So they give us something like 44 area equals 1/2 h times capital B plus lowercase b. And they want us to solve for h, which is the height. And they tell us that this is the area of a trapezoid, which that's more just like FYI. You don't really need to know that for the sake of actually being able to do this problem. But what we're doing here is I need to get h by itself. So how would I go about getting this h right here by itself? Multiply by 2, so that's going to give me 2 times a equals h times big B plus little b. Now what?
Divide by big B plus little b.
Yep, so I can divide by that whole thing that's in parentheses. So I'm going to get h is equal to 2a over big B plus little b. And that's all you have to do for those. Like that. Let's see. 48. So they give us z equals x minus mu, which is basically just a cursive u. That's what it looks like. Over sigma, which is a sideways 6, basically. This formula is for standard deviation in stats. So if you end up taking stats, you'll become very familiar with this formula.
Question.
Yes.
On the 48, where it says z equals x minus, what is that?
It's called mu. It's basically a cursive u. Yeah. If you're not in stats, it doesn't make a ton of sense. But if you end up taking stats, that formula will become one of your best friends in that class. So, and they want us to solve for x. So I want to try to get this, come on, x by itself. So what would I have to do first to start working toward that?
Multiply by sigma.
Yes, multiply by sigma. Have y'all seen this formula before?
No.
No, it's
It's like a Gen Z term.
Got it. I was like, why do they think this is so funny? Like, what is happening? That would make sense. So z times sigma equals x minus mu.
Oh my gosh.
So clearly starting at your class and going down, I'm going to expect to have comedy in my stats class, I guess. Because I've never had a class crack up this much over this formula.
That's funny.
And I'm not that much older than you are, so clearly missing something. Okay, now what?
Subtract mu.
Add.
Mu.
So z times sigma plus mu equals x. And that's going to be that. Clearly going to have to go do some Googling when this class is over. Okay. All right, the next ones are the same thing, but it just has to solve the equation for x. So x minus 1 over 2a equals 2x minus a. So I need to solve for x. I'm just going to write that over here so we don't forget what we're solving for. Which is basically what I was just doing in the other problems. That just now I only have one variable specifically that they're telling me to solve for in every problem. So what I'm going to do is multiply both sides by 2a so I can get rid of the fraction. Yes.
I thought that was a z slide. I got confused.
A z? In 54?
Yeah. Oh, wait, you put the line. Okay, never mind. I'm good.
I was like, what?
I didn't realize you put the line.
I thought you thought the A was a Z. That's why I was really confused. I was like, I can assure you those don't look the same. So I'm going to have x minus 1 equals 2a times 2x minus a. which when I distribute that gives me, keeps running away, x minus 1 equals 4ax minus 2a squared So now what I want to do is I want to get all of the x pieces on one side and then all the pieces that do not have an x on the other side. So I'm going to move all the x's to the left, all the numbers or numbers with just an a to the right. So I'm going to have x minus 4ax equals 1 minus 2a squared. At this point, I now have two pieces that have an x in them, and I need to solve for x. So what I need to do is I need to factor out an x, like I'm doing like a greatest common factor kind of thing. So I'm going to take out x, which leaves me with 1 minus 4a equals 1 minus 2a squared. Now what can I do? So I just need to get x by itself. So I've taken the x out, it's being multiplied by something. So what would I need to do to get it by itself? Divide. So that's going to get me x equals 1 minus 2a squared over 1 minus 4a. And that would be your answer. And that should be as hard as they get. Like, they shouldn't really get any harder than that. So, I feel okay about those. All right. So then your problems. This is a shorter homework assignment. 19, 31, 35, 43, and 53. Tomorrow's section, you'll have a handout that's given to you because it's like a word problem type section. And they're not all word problems, but they are like lengthy word problems. But I'll have a worksheet that I give you, and we'll do like about half of it together, and then the rest of it will be your like homework. But they all come out of the book. It just that way you don't have to like sit there and write out every problem every time. It'll just be already in front of you. So. But you have about 30 minutes you can work on this. And then when you're done with this, if you for some reason haven't done the notes for the next section, which I think they were like 3 minutes or something, you can do that. Or you can work on something else after that. I don't care.